Okay, thank you for joining us for the second In Conversation, and we want to talk about the crowdfunding campaign that we ran earlier in the year, 2018, in April. We actually managed to raise or get pledged 3,000 of the 4,000 total, and I'd just like to ask the guys, William and Ross, what they actually learned from the process that you guys might be able to take some notice of and learn from yourselves. So what did you guys learn from the crowdfunding campaign we ran?
Well, specifically about crowdfunding itself and how it all works, you have to really make sure that you're already talking about what you're doing way before you even start it, so that people are aware of what you're doing. I think what this particular one has actually really helped us raise awareness of what we're doing, and actually for people to hear what we're doing. What do you think, Ross?
I'd agree with that. I mean, I had another Kickstarter campaign to compare it to. So for me, it was learning how different types of campaigns. So this was obviously documentary series compared to fictional Kickstarter campaigns. So it was interesting to compare how people responded to both types of campaigns. So definitely developed that side of things. Yeah.
Oh, because it was like a different project entirely. Because you're doing a mockumentary, aren't you? So
yeah,
which is a completely different thing to what we're doing here. So is there anything you learnt yourself, Stuart? What about you?
What I learned is the same in all marketing. You can write things down and explain it, but some people still misunderstand. It's like we were saying all the way through the campaign that, unless we get the full sum pledged, we don't get a penny. There was a certain date it ended on, and we had a number of people afterwards that sent me emails saying, "Oh, we'd like to still pledge." And I said, "Well, the date's closed." And some people didn't realise there was a closing date. Some people didn't realise unless we got it all, we didn't get a penny. No matter how you phrase it, people still interpret it how they like.
And I think I can speak for all of us, well, all three of us, that we were really pleased with the total we got to, especially in the time that we had in that month. And specifically would like to thank everybody who pledged during that time and showed enough interest to actually want to go and actually try and actually help back this project. But what else did you learn in particular, Stuart?
I learned that what we're doing is very polarising. We're trying through the film we want to make about the old Wickham Railway. We want to get the volunteers back into the tunnel at Horsepath on the old railway line, which is one of the most important bat hibernaculums in the country. And unless we can find the funds to do a health and safety survey, they're not allowed back in there. What I found, that was very polarising, because some people feel that you should just leave nature alone. You shouldn't actually get involved or help it. Nature can survive on its own. But I also learnt that some people felt, that nobody's going to back a crowdfunding campaign because the backers don't get a return. So a business isn't going to fund it because, there's no profit in it for them. Whereas crowdfunding is actually about creative projects, you wanting to see something get off the ground without necessarily a return. So I felt it was all very polarising, and the key was to find the people who got what you did.
Yeah, I think if you already understand what crowdfunding actually is that thing of actually backing a creative project. You don't. The return for you is actually the project being done itself. I mean, I actually backed Ross's in other news because I really enjoyed the pilot and I wanted to see more. That's the reason why I backed it. How do you feel, Ross, really, about it?
Yeah, I think we did. It was nice actually to finally be able to run a campaign, because we'd obviously tried to do quite a couple of other things beforehand, like Holywell and a trip to Guernsey and Llandudno. So I think it was quite refreshing for us to all be able to just sink our teeth in and really just kind of get on with it and give it a go. And I think we got really far, considering we didn't really know kind of what we were up against. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, do you think, even though this has been around the idea has been around for a couple of years, do you feel that it really started when we did that that crowdfund right there, that was almost the start of this project in a way? Because that's what it felt like to me in some respects.
Yeah, I think it became real because it before it's like we shot a pilot in Oxford. We were kind of always planning things. Our social media was very much talking about the stuff we were doing in preparation and behind the scenes. But I think the running the Kickstarter, although we didn't succeed, it did a really good marketing effort. It really raised awareness for what we're doing, and hopefully we'll be able to find another form of continuing our work.
And it was like that next step, right?
Yes.
I'd just like to pick up on the word success. I feel that our campaign may not have hit the target of £4,000, but I think it was very successful because it got us working together as a team, got us understanding what we were doing, it got us some exposure, and it's been said that nobody's going to back us because we're just wasting £4,000, but we actually wrote down where the budgets were going, and this project was being done under my umbrella, and I had to pay a photographer and a cameraman, which are you two. So they're costs. You can't get something off this without having costs. So 4,000 I think was realistic.
It was realistic, and we really I hoped that anybody looked at the actual, and especially those who pledged might have actually looked at where the money would have ended up, and we ran it on a pretty tight budget, as tight as we could do without scrimping on quality. We were pretty translucent about what we were going to be spending the money on. So what's our next step, I suppose, is the question next, isn't it?
Okay, so our next step is actually to go out there and try and get some sponsors for doing this show for the Wickham line, because we didn't succeed in getting 4,000. We've filmed the first 2 scenes of that, and we're going to use those first 2 scenes to go to corporates to say, look, this is the quality we're working to, we need some help with some funding and give people exposure. But the exciting thing is this is wider than the film. We've said we were going to do radio, and we were going to do re-edit that audio for the talking newspapers. But we've just launched the People's Countryside podcast. We want to take that in front of a live audience, as live and unscripted. We've got a theatre in mind in Oxford to take this actually live on the stage. And we're also developing a photographic exhibition which would be at the theatre as well. So it's actually growing hugely. So that's our next step in my view.
I'm just going to talk quickly about the format of the podcast as well, because that's quite an entertaining and quite an interesting format. So myself and Stuart, we invite a guest to come onto the podcast. So it's just done the dynamic of the 3 of us. Though the first, you also had a micro intern from the University of Oxford, didn't you? Each one of us brings you could almost call it a philosophical question about nature, but it's a question about nature, and we discuss that. And the 2 that we've recorded so far, the discussions have been quite in-depth and interesting. They go down their own little paths, and because all 3 of us have a different background and feeling and that sort of thing. You've listened to it, Ross, haven't you? How did you see that first episode? Because we released that one just recently, didn't we?
Yes, I think as an outsider it was interesting to see you guys talking for the first time, and I think for a first episode you raised some controversial topics, and it was a really engaging discussion. I remember you were talking about, do you interfere with nature or not, or do you just let it be? Do we protect species that might be going extinct, or do we just is that the will of nature? So I think if you're already hitting those topics early on, I'm excited to see how others develop.
Do you think that controversy it raises a bit of controversy, doesn't it? Because it's almost like polarizing ideas, polarizing opinions a little bit, isn't it?
Yes, I always think controversy is it's always good to discuss something controversial, because it includes everyone, because usually everyone's got something to say, especially around a topic like nature. And in a country like this, where housing is being built in lots of places and people don't necessarily like it, other people can see why it's needed. There are so many different debates that are happening right now.
I was just thinking about the Cambridge Expressway. I'll leave that to you, Stuart.
No, I never mention the C word on film. Anyway, so the live and unscripted, we're going to be going on the stage with those 3 questions that we will set, and during the interval the audience will be able to set their questions for the second half. We will debate that. It will be involving the audience, and it might even be an interactive workshop second half. But it's just this project started as just the 3 of us sat down around a table thinking, oh, should we make some films? And it's evolved into podcasts, radio, talking newspapers, exhibitions, live stage. Where can it go next?
Well, I was just thinking that started in a cafe in Headington, didn't it?
Yeah.
I wasn't involved in that first meeting. It was just you two. You were there to film something that I was doing at the time.
It was interesting, wasn't it? Because we all met each other kind of separately. Like, I met you at a networking event. I met Stuart through the local TV channel and Radio Bista, and then we kind of all came together. And I know obviously you two did work together as well.
Yeah, and it's now led us to being sat actually where we're recording this right now. To my right is actually the entrance to the tunnel where we've just been referring to. That's the actual hibernaculum just over here. I'm sure Ross will edit a cutaway in here. Yes. Oh, was that a little bit too high there, Stuart?
You're losing my image. Yeah.
You asked a question, didn't you? What was the question?
Oh, I don't know.
Was it something about the future of the people's countryside?
Yeah.
I think we've already kind of touched upon
started
it.
talking about the past now, haven't we?
Well, we're reminiscing about many years ago.
Mm.
I think the future is, we've already kind of talked about it, haven't we? So it's this series of films, but also the podcast, the way we can repurpose things for the talking newspapers. There is so much. Of course, there's the blog as well.
Yeah. No, but we can't do this for free. If you see my uniform, I got sponsors going on my uniform. So it's all, the way we fund this is by getting funding by people who get what we're doing, public, commercial, even grant funding. So we're not out to make a fortune. We're out to be able to make a difference and cover our costs from doing it. So I will leave Ross to sign out of this this in conversation. This will probably have to be edited. And
it won't be edited.
William?
I thought you were going to leave it to Ross.
Yeah, I will, but I'm not going to leave you out, am I?
I just want to go back to what I said earlier, though. So to anybody who pledged for our crowdfunding campaign, thanks very much. It's very much appreciated. And we hope that there's something in the future. We're going to have this video launched, and yeah, thanks very much. Do you want to finish with anything, Ross?
Just to say, thank you to the people that pledged on our Kickstarter campaign. Don't forget, if you're watching this on YouTube, which you most probably are, press subscribe to the YouTube channel or give us a thumbs up. And we're obviously on Facebook and Twitter as well, so you can see our updates there. So
he actually did a thumbs up there. I don't know. That's 1980s, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit 90s, but yeah. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.